My name's Jake. I'm 37, and I live in a small town just outside of Seattle. I've got a steady job at a local tech firm, and my wife, June, and I have been together for almost 10 years. Life was good, or so I thought. That evening, I walked into the house feeling a mix of relief and satisfaction. It had been a long workday, but things had gone better than expected. The numbers we'd been crunching for weeks finally clicked, and my team was in a good spot. I'd been looking forward to getting home, maybe grabbing a beer and kicking back. But as soon as I stepped inside, something was off. The house, which usually felt like a cozy refuge, now felt empty. It was quiet in a way that didn't sit right. Normally, you'd hear June bustling in the kitchen or the TV softly playing in the living room, but there was nothing. I paused by the entryway, wondering if I'd just missed her by a few minutes. "June?" I called out. No answer. I put my keys on the hook by the door and made my way through the house, expecting to find her in the living room, maybe scrolling through her phone or watching whatever show she'd gotten hooked on that week. But as I passed through the hallway, I heard a door slam upstairs. The sharp sound made me stop in my tracks. I tilted my head, listening. The footsteps were hurried, almost too quick, and then silence. I frowned, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. June didn't normally act like this, especially when she knew I'd be home early. I was starting to feel that weird gut feeling, the one that tells you something's not right, but you can't quite put your finger on it. I walked toward the stairs. Just as I was about to reach the bottom, I heard June's voice. "Oh, hey babe, you're home early." She appeared at the top of the stairs, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. It was off, forced, the kind of smile you wear when you're trying to cover something up. She was wearing her usual comfortable clothes, sweatpants, a hoodie, but there was something about her demeanor that made me pause. "Yeah," I replied, trying to sound casual. "Had an early finish at work. Everything okay?" June seemed to hesitate for a second, her eyes darting away for just a split second before she answered. "Oh yeah, totally fine, just cleaning up a little, getting things in order." I nodded, not fully convinced. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was trying too hard to sound normal. It was the way she kept fidgeting with her hands, the way her voice was just a little too high-pitched, like she was waiting for me to say something. Cleaning at 7 p.m.? I glanced around. The living room was in its usual state, nothing out of the ordinary, no cleaning supplies, no signs that she'd been tidying up at all. I didn't say anything, though. Instead, I made my way into the kitchen, trying to act like I didn't notice the odd tension hanging in the air. But as I stepped into the kitchen, my eyes caught something strange on the counter. A monogrammed wallet. It wasn't mine. I immediately recognized it. It was leather, black, with a subtle gold monogram on the front, something I hadn't seen before. "Whose is this?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "Oh, that?" June stammered, suddenly too interested in wiping down a dish that didn't need cleaning. "It's just, a friend of mine. He, left it here. I think he was over earlier." Her voice trailed off, and I noticed how she was avoiding my gaze. A friend. Of course. I picked up the wallet, trying to act casual, but my mind was already racing. June and I didn't have many friends over, especially not ones who left things behind. The wallet looked expensive too, not the kind of thing I'd expect to be left lying around after a casual visit. I set the wallet back down slowly and took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "Okay, well, I'm going to go grab a drink," I said, my voice colder now, more controlled. "Let me know if you need help with anything." June gave me a tight smile again. "Thanks, Jake, but I'm good, just, handling things." I didn't trust that smile, but I didn't press it, not yet. Instead, I grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat down, trying to act like everything was fine. But inside, I felt the knot in my stomach tightening. Something was going on, and I wasn't sure what, but I was going to find out, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep pretending everything was normal. The rest of the evening played out like any other night, but the air between June and me felt heavier than usual. There were the small, awkward silences when she spoke, the little glances she threw at me as if she was waiting for me to say something. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something, but I didn't have any proof, just a hunch and a wallet that didn't belong. I decided to let it slide for the moment. I wasn't the kind of guy who confronted people without a reason, but my mind kept going back to that wallet. Who was this friend of hers, and why hadn't he taken it with him? As the evening wore on, I tried to focus on the TV, but the noise from the living room felt muffled, distant. June sat across from me, scrolling through her phone, her fingers tapping quickly as if trying to look busy. There was an unnerving stillness in the room that made it hard to relax. At some point, she stood up to grab something from the kitchen, and I took the opportunity to stand up myself and head toward the bathroom. As I passed the guest room, I noticed the door was slightly ajar. The faint scent of perfume hit me, June's scent. But there was something else there, something unfamiliar. I hesitated for a moment, then pushed the door open just enough to peek inside. The room was empty save for a few boxes and furniture, but my eyes were drawn to the small dresser in the corner. On top of it, just barely visible, was a small silver key. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized it, the kind of key you'd use for a hotel room or a lockbox. There was something unsettling about it, something that didn't sit right. June had never mentioned anything about needing a spare key for anything. I stepped into the room, my mind racing, but before I could pick it up, I heard her footsteps coming back down the hall. I quickly turned, making sure I didn't make a sound as I closed the door behind me. My pulse was pounding in my ears as I rushed to the bathroom, pretending nothing had happened. I spent the next few minutes in a daze, splashing cold water on my face, trying to shake off the unease that had settled in my gut. When I finally came back to the living room, June was sitting in the same spot, but her posture had changed. She was tense now, her phone resting idle in her lap. Her eyes flicked up to meet mine for just a second before she quickly looked away, as if she'd been caught doing something she wasn't supposed to. I felt the weight of the silence between us, heavy and thick. I had to say something, but I didn't want to just accuse her without any evidence. Instead, I focused on the little things, the details that didn't quite add up. "Hey," I said casually, trying to sound normal. "I didn't smell any cleaning products earlier. You mentioned you were cleaning. Is everything all right?" June's gaze flicked back to me, and for a brief moment I saw something in her eyes. A flash of guilt, maybe, or just the exhaustion of trying to keep up the charade. "Oh, yeah," she said quickly, her voice a little too high-pitched. "I didn't really get around to it, just tidying up, you know?" I nodded, not fully convinced. "All right, but what's with the unfamiliar cologne I smelled earlier? I didn't think you wore that." Her eyes widened just slightly before she quickly masked it with a smile. "What?" "Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's just the soap from the bathroom?" she suggested, but I could tell it didn't sound right even to her. I stayed quiet, my mind turning over the possibilities. The wallet, the key, the strange smell in the house. It all added up to something that I didn't want to believe, but couldn't ignore. There was more going on here than June was letting on. I couldn't put my finger on it yet, but I was getting closer. The evening dragged on. We had dinner in silence with small, polite exchanges here and there, but the tension between us was palpable. I kept glancing at her, trying to read her expressions, but it was like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Every time I thought I had a clear picture, something else came into play to make me doubt myself. Finally, after dinner, June stood up to clear the plates. I remained seated on the couch, watching her move around the kitchen, a little too quickly now, a little too carefully. "Jake, I'm really tired," she said after a moment, her voice quieter now. "I think I'll head to bed early tonight. Got a busy day tomorrow." I nodded, but I didn't answer. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was trying to escape the conversation, that she was trying to avoid whatever was between us. As she walked past me to head upstairs, I saw the slightest tremor in her hand as she reached for the railing. It was subtle, but it was there, just enough to make me question everything. For the first time in years, I was starting to feel like an intruder in my own home. I stayed on the couch long after June had gone upstairs, the weight of my thoughts pressing down on me. I had been blind to the signs before, but now everything felt wrong. I needed answers. But how far was I willing to go to get them? It was nearly midnight by the time I finally decided to get some sleep, but rest wouldn't come. I tossed and turned, my mind buzzing with the details that had been piling up all evening. The wallet, the perfume, the strange key. June's behavior, her forced smiles, her rushed explanations. The thing about suspicions is that they're like weeds. You can try to ignore them, but the more you do, the faster they grow. And the more I thought about everything that had happened, the clearer it became. Something was off. June was hiding something from me, and I had to figure out what it was. I gave up on sleep after what felt like hours of restless turning. Slowly, I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake June. The house was quiet, too quiet, and the stillness pressed down on me. I grabbed my phone and checked the time, 2:15 a.m. I felt a wave of frustration, of doubt. I wasn't one to jump to conclusions, but I could no longer ignore the signs. Something was happening behind the scenes, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to face it. The first place I headed was the guest room. The key, the one I'd spotted earlier, had been eating away at me all night. Why was it there? What did it mean? I knew it wasn't something June had ever mentioned, and I couldn't shake the idea that it had something to do with whatever was going on. I crept into the room, the faint smell of her perfume still lingering in the air, making it feel like she had just been there. The key sat on the dresser, exactly where I had seen it earlier. I didn't pick it up this time. I didn't need to. What I needed was answers, and I was starting to realize that the answers weren't going to come from her. I checked the drawer next. My fingers hovered over the handle for a moment before I opened it, not sure if I was overstepping, but too far gone to care. It was filled with miscellaneous items, papers, pens, receipts. But then, beneath it all, I found something that made my blood run cold. A small, crumpled envelope with a hotel logo on it. I hesitated for a second, my heart racing before I pulled it out. The envelope was addressed to June. My name wasn't on it. The name of the hotel was one I didn't recognize, and the date on the receipt was for last week, right when June had been working late several nights in a row. I opened it slowly, feeling the weight of each second as I scanned the document inside. It was a bill for a hotel stay. The details were clear: an overnight stay in a luxury suite, booked for 2. The date was set for a Thursday, the same day June had claimed to be busy with work. I sat there in the guest room, staring at the bill in disbelief. June had been staying at a hotel. And not just any hotel. This was a high-end, exclusive place. I didn't know whether to feel angry, betrayed, or just plain stupid for not seeing it earlier. What hurt the most was that I had spent the past few weeks questioning myself. I thought I was paranoid, overthinking the small things. But this was real. I couldn't sit there anymore, staring at the evidence. I had to know what was going on, even if it meant confronting June. The problem was, I wasn't sure I was ready to hear the truth. I had known June for nearly a decade, and the thought of her betraying me, the thought of her lying to my face, of keeping something like this from me, felt like a punch in the gut. But I had to confront it. I couldn't live in this fog of doubt any longer. I slipped out of the guest room and back to the bedroom, my heart pounding in my chest. The house was still eerily quiet, the night stretching out like an eternity. June was sound asleep when I climbed back into bed beside her, but I couldn't sleep. My mind was reeling. I lay there for what felt like hours, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to confront her. I had the evidence now. I had the hotel bill. It was undeniable, but I didn't want to wake her up in the middle of the night. That wasn't fair to her, and if I was going to do this, I needed to be calm, collected. I had to be the one who controlled the situation, not her. I got out of bed again, quietly this time, and grabbed my phone. I stared at the screen, unsure of how to start. I didn't want to ask her directly yet. I wanted to give her a chance to explain. But where would that leave me? I stared at the screen for a long time, my thumb hovering over the send button. Finally, I put the phone down. It wasn't time for a text or an email. This had to be face to face. I needed to hear her voice. I needed to see if the guilt was in her eyes, if she could look me in the face and lie without blinking. I wasn't sure what I was hoping for anymore. Maybe I was still hoping that it would all turn out to be a misunderstanding. But the evidence didn't lie. The truth was sitting there in front of me, and I had to face it. I took one last look at June, sound asleep beside me, before I grabbed the hotel bill from my bag and slid it under the pillow where she wouldn't see it. Then I finally closed my eyes. But I didn't sleep. Not a single wink. The next day, I would have my answers, and whether I was ready or not, I was going to get them. I woke up the next morning with a pit in my stomach. The sleep I had gotten was restless at best, more like a series of broken moments where my mind raced through the events of the previous night. The hotel bill, the strange key, the unspoken tension between June and me. It was too much to ignore, and the evidence I had uncovered in the guest room had only deepened my suspicions. I needed to know the truth. The idea of confronting June head-on without more concrete proof didn't sit right with me. I couldn't risk having her talk her way out of it. If there was something going on, I had to have evidence. Hard, undeniable evidence. That's the only way I'd ever be able to move forward, one way or the other. The idea came to me as I sat at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, staring at the empty space where June would normally sit across from me. I hadn't seen her yet. She'd left early for work, which gave me the perfect window to act. I stood up abruptly, the decision made. I couldn't just sit back and wait for her to explain. I needed to take control of the situation, get the answers myself. No more second guessing. I went straight to the guest room, the same room where I had found the hotel receipt. It was the perfect place. If June was hiding something, I knew it wouldn't be the last time. I had to act quickly. After a quick search of the room, I found what I needed. An old hidden camera from a tech project I had been working on months ago. It was small, discreet, perfect for what I needed. I checked it to make sure it was still functional. It had been in my drawer gathering dust, but now it had a new purpose. I went about setting it up in the guest room, mounting it discreetly in a corner where it wouldn't be noticed, even if someone were to come in. I positioned it just right, making sure it had a clear view of the door and the general layout of the room. The footage wouldn't reveal much, but it would give me a peek into what was really going on when I wasn't around. As I worked, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of guilt and relief. Guilt for invading her privacy. This wasn't something I had ever done before. But the relief, that was the part that pushed me forward. I was finally taking control. I was going to find out what was happening, even if I had to do it myself. I was careful about where I placed the camera. No one would ever notice it. Once it was in place, I went over everything again, just to make sure. The camera was ready. Now, all I had to do was wait. I left the house before June could get back from work, keeping my distance, pretending nothing was out of the ordinary. I wanted her to think I was just going about my day. If she suspected anything, I'd never get the answers I needed. The camera would be my eyes while I was gone. I checked my phone every hour, anxiously waiting for the first footage to come in. The first few hours were normal, just her usual routine. June spent a lot of time in the kitchen, doing what looked like nothing, just puttering around. It was boring. A part of me hoped the footage would reveal something, anything out of place, something that would explain the cold distance I was starting to feel from her. But nothing happened. Then, at around 6 p.m., I received a notification that there was movement in the guest room. My heart jumped into my throat. I pulled up the footage immediately. At first, it looked like just another normal evening. June walked into the room, seemingly just checking on something. She looked around, then moved toward the dresser where I had placed the key and the wallet earlier. My pulse quickened. She picked up the wallet, glanced at it, and then turned toward the door, hesitating for just a moment. It was subtle, but there was something about the way she handled the wallet that made my stomach twist. She slid it into her bag without a word, then walked out of the room. That was it. No other signs, no major confrontation. But I couldn't ignore the feeling that something had just clicked into place. She'd taken the wallet. It was clear now. She wasn't just covering for a friend. It was real. I was staring at the screen, my hand shaking slightly as I processed what I had just witnessed. June wasn't as innocent as she had been making herself out to be. The small details I'd been ignoring now stood out like neon signs. The wallet was no accident. Neither was the hotel stay. And now, whatever she was hiding had just become far more complicated than I could have imagined. The knot in my stomach was back, tighter than before. I had seen enough. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore. I had proof. The next step was clear. I needed to confront her. But how? I couldn't let her know I had been watching her. I couldn't show her the footage. Not yet. I needed to be smarter about this. I shut the laptop, my mind running through every possible scenario. I would wait until she came home, act like everything was normal. Maybe, just maybe, I could get the truth from her. But I was done pretending. I was going to find out what was going on, whether she was ready to tell me or not. The day felt like it stretched on forever. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't pay attention to anything other than the footage I had seen. Every minute dragged by, each second filled with the gnawing feeling of knowing something was wrong, but not being able to pinpoint exactly what. I had the answers, but I still had so many questions. When the evening finally rolled around, I found myself pacing around the house, the tension making my movements stiff, unnatural. I hadn't heard from June all day. No calls, no messages. It was strange, even for her. She wasn't one to leave me hanging for so long, without a word. At 7:30 p.m., I heard the front door open and the sound of June's voice, soft and quick as she stepped inside. My heart jumped into my throat. I had no idea how this conversation was going to go, but I couldn't hold back any longer. I had to do this. I forced myself to act like nothing was out of the ordinary. I took a deep breath, straightened my posture, and moved into the living room as though I was just finishing dinner. She appeared at the doorway a few moments later, smiling weakly, her face tired. "Hey," she said, setting down her bag and hanging up her coat. "How was your day?" "Fine," I replied, keeping it short. I wanted to talk about something." June froze for a moment, her eyes narrowing slightly as if she could sense the shift in my tone. "What's up?" "I found something today." I said it casually, but my stomach was in knots. "Something in the guest room?" Her expression didn't change, but I noticed her eyes flick to the hallway, almost as if she was calculating how to react. "What do you mean?" I didn't waste time beating around the bush. "I found the hotel receipt, June, the one for the hotel stay last week, and the key you left behind. And I saw you take the wallet earlier." Her face went completely still, the smile dropping from her face like a curtain being pulled down. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. I could hear the faintest tremor in her breath. "You went to the hotel last week," I continued, keeping my voice steady. "And you took that wallet. Why?" She swallowed hard, her hand tightening around the strap of her purse as if trying to steady herself. "Jake," she finally spoke, her voice quieter now, almost defensive. "You're overreacting. It's not what you think." "Then explain it to me," I said, my voice growing firmer, more insistent. "Because right now, it doesn't make sense. You're hiding something from me, June, and I don't know what it is, but I'm not going to ignore it anymore." She looked away from me, unable to meet my eyes, her fingers fidgeting with her purse strap. "It's complicated," she murmured, as if that was supposed to make everything clear. I shook my head, refusing to let her dodge the question. "Number? It's really not. You went to a hotel, you took something that wasn't yours, and you've been lying about it. You want me to just pretend I didn't notice?" June took a step back, shaking her head, clearly trying to form the right words, but the longer she stood there, the more I saw the cracks in her composure. "Jake, please. I didn't mean for it to get like this." The words hit me harder than I expected. I had known she was hiding something, but hearing her finally admit that it had spiraled out of her control made everything feel more real. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a miscommunication. There was something much deeper going on, and I was standing right in the middle of it. "What does that mean?" I asked, the frustration creeping into my voice. "What happened? Who were you with? And why didn't you just tell me?" She took a deep breath, her eyes looking almost lost. It's not what you think. It's just complicated. I didn't want to hurt you, Jake. I didn't know how to explain it without making things worse." I stared at her, my emotions swirling, confusion, betrayal, anger, but beneath all of that, there was still a small, lingering piece of me that wanted to believe her. I had spent years with her, building a life together. And now, this. "I'm listening," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, but it was a struggle. "Tell me. Because right now, I don't even know who I'm talking to." She hesitated, her eyes flicking to the floor, avoiding my gaze. Then, slowly, she walked over to the couch and sat down. She motioned for me to sit as well. "I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to get hurt," she said softly. "But I've been seeing someone else, Jake, and it's been going on for a while now." The words hit like a punch to the chest. I had suspected something, but hearing it out loud was a different kind of shock. "Someone else?" I repeated, my voice cracking despite myself. I couldn't wrap my head around it. "You've been having an affair?" She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes now. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, but it just did. I've been so confused, and I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't want to hurt you." I stood there, unable to process what she was saying. The room felt suffocating, the weight of her confession pressing down on me like an anvil. I had spent so many years trusting her, believing in us. And now, everything was unraveling before my eyes. "You've been seeing him this whole time?" I managed to ask, barely able to keep the words from sounding like an accusation. "Yes," she whispered, barely audible now. "And I'm so sorry, Jake. I never wanted you to find out this way." I couldn't speak. The room was spinning, and all I could do was stand there, staring at her, trying to process what she had just admitted. The woman I thought I knew, The woman I had married, the woman I had trusted, had been hiding a piece of herself from me all this time. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know if I even wanted to hear any more explanations. This was the truth. This was what I had been dreading, and now that I had it, I didn't know how to move forward. And in that silence, I realized that this wasn't just about the affair anymore. This was about everything: the lies, the secrets, the broken trust. This wasn't the marriage I thought I had. "I think I need some time to think," I said quietly, my voice barely a whisper. She nodded, wiping a tear from her cheek. "I understand." But I didn't feel any better. I didn't feel relieved. All I felt was a hollow emptiness, the kind that only comes from realizing that the person you love has betrayed you in the worst way possible. And as I turned away from her, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. I couldn't sleep that night. Not because I didn't want to, but because my mind was a mess of conflicting thoughts, none of them allowing me to find any kind of peace. June's confession felt like a weight in my chest that I couldn't shake. But what hurt the most wasn't even the affair itself. It was the years I had spent blind to everything, the trust I had blindly given her, thinking we were building something real. I kept replaying everything she had said. She apologized over and over, but there was no fixing this. Not with words, not with empty promises. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall, my thoughts racing, when the idea hit me again, something I had pushed to the back of my mind all day. The camera footage. It had felt like a distant hope when I'd set it up, like I was grasping at straws, but now it felt like a lifeline. I needed to see it again. I needed to understand exactly what had been going on, what was real, what was fake. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the footage from the guest room. My fingers hovered over the trackpad as the video began to load. The first few minutes were typical. June walking into the room, checking the dresser, moving around aimlessly. Nothing unusual, but then I saw it. The moment the footage shifted. The moment that confirmed what I had been hoping wasn't true. There it was. The same movement I had seen earlier in the day. June picking up the wallet from the dresser. She paused for a second, glanced around, and then, as casually as anything, slipped it into her purse. I felt my heart drop. It was real. It wasn't just a mistake. She had lied to me. Not once, but over and over again. The look on her face when she picked up the wallet, the hesitation, the way she looked around as if making sure no one was watching, it was all there, clear as day. I replayed the footage over and over again, my stomach sinking with each pass. I felt a sense of nausea building in my gut, the same feeling I had when I'd found the hotel receipt and that damn key. It wasn't just the betrayal that stung. It was the realization that I had been living in a lie, completely unaware of the truth. I couldn't stop watching it. I couldn't stop hoping that maybe I had missed something, but there was nothing to miss. It was all there, the evidence, the proof. June had been hiding this from me for weeks, maybe longer. I slammed the laptop shut, the noise loud in the silence of the house. My heart was pounding in my chest, and my breathing was shallow. I had the footage. I had the confirmation. I didn't need to question it anymore. But I still wasn't sure what I was supposed to do with it. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to march into the room and demand answers right now, but I knew I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. I needed to think. I needed time to process all of this before I said anything else to her. It felt like I was suffocating, the weight of it all pressing in on me. What had I been doing with my life? Was this just the beginning of the unraveling of everything I thought I knew about her? About us? I couldn't stay in the house another minute. I grabbed my jacket and left, not caring where I went, just needing to get away. I walked aimlessly for hours, trying to clear my head, trying to wrap my mind around what had just happened. The whole time, the footage haunted me. I couldn't get the image of her slipping that wallet into her purse out of my mind. It played over and over, like a song that wouldn't stop looping. When I finally found myself back at the house, it was late. The streets were quiet, the world outside feeling like it belonged to someone else, someone who didn't have to deal with the mess I was in. I stood outside the front door for a moment, feeling the cold air cut through me, and then I went inside. June was sitting in the living room, her face pale, her eyes red. She must have been waiting for me. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there, staring at her, unsure of where to begin. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be angry, hurt, or just numb. The reality of the situation was too much to process all at once. "Jake," She started softly, her voice trembling. "We need to talk." I nodded, but I couldn't bring myself to speak. What was there to say? She knew what she had done. I knew what she had done. I walked past her to the kitchen and grabbed a glass of water. My hands were shaking. The tension in the room was suffocating, and all I could think about was the footage, the proof that I wasn't just being paranoid, that I wasn't crazy for doubting her. When I came back to the living room, June was still sitting there, her head lowered, her eyes not quite meeting mine. "Why?" I asked, the word coming out barely above a whisper. She didn't respond right away. It felt like a lifetime before she finally spoke. "I don't know, Jake. I don't know why I did it. I was confused. I thought I could handle it, but I couldn't. The words didn't make sense to me. They didn't make up for what had happened. They didn't erase the betrayal, but somehow I had to know the rest." "Who was he?" I asked, finally finding the strength to face the question that had been eating away at me. "Who is he?" Her voice was barely audible when she answered, her eyes finally meeting mine. "His name is Brandon." "Brandon?" I repeated, the name unfamiliar and cold on my tongue. I hadn't known about any Brandon. She hadn't mentioned him before. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my emotions in check. "How long has this been going on?" "A few months," she admitted, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I don't know. Things with us, they weren't the same. I wasn't sure what to do, and I made a mistake." I stood there, staring at her, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't know who she was anymore. I had spent years with her, trusted her, loved her, and now I was standing here, listening to her explain her actions, as if they were just something that could be brushed away. I didn't have the strength to say anything more, not right now. I turned around and left the room, heading straight for the front door. I needed space. I needed time. But most of all, I needed to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. And as I stepped outside into the cold night air, I realized that nothing was ever going to be the same again. The days that followed felt like I was living in a fog. I moved through life like a zombie, not really feeling anything. June's confession still hung over me, but I couldn't find a way to shake it. I'd never been one to wallow, but this wasn't something I could just walk away from without some answers. And I knew deep down I wasn't going to get the closure I needed by just talking to her anymore. I had to take control. I had to make sure this didn't end with me being the one left picking up the pieces of my life while June continued on like nothing happened. No, that wasn't going to happen. I spent the next few days in a daze, slowly piecing together everything I knew about Brandon. The name had been foreign to me until then, but once I started digging, things started falling into place in a way I hadn't expected. I found Brandon's social media profiles, connections, old business dealings. He was smooth, polished, exactly the kind of guy June had probably been looking for in her life. The more I uncovered, the more I felt a burning need to take action. I couldn't just sit back anymore. This wasn't just about an affair. It was about everything she'd done in secret while pretending our life was fine. The lies she'd told me, the little moments where she'd brushed me off, said she was working late, or made excuses for everything that was really happening. I didn't know exactly where to start, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't act like I was okay with this. I spent the next few days quietly gathering evidence. I went through the bank statements, scrutinizing every transaction, every tiny detail. There were payments I didn't recognize, expensive dinners, hotel stays, things that didn't add up. Money had been siphoned from our joint accounts, but she'd been careful. She'd made sure nothing too obvious stood out. She'd played it safe, but that only made me more suspicious. I knew I had to find a way to confront her that wouldn't give her the upper hand. I couldn't just walk in and accuse her of everything without having everything lined up first. I wasn't an amateur. I wasn't just some fool who blindly trusted her anymore. No, I was going to make sure this wasn't going to be a one-sided war. It took hours to put everything together, but by the end of the week, I was ready. I had everything I needed, proof of the affair, evidence of her financial misconduct, and the names of people who were involved. I knew I needed leverage, and I was going to get it. If June wanted to play dirty, then I was ready to match her. I didn't confront her right away. I waited until Friday night. She was supposed to be home late again, another one of her work-late excuses, and I knew she wouldn't expect me to be home. I wasn't. I was parked down the street, watching her car in the driveway, waiting for her to leave for the evening. I needed her out of the house for what I had planned. It felt strange, watching my own home from the outside like some kind of intruder. But that's exactly what I felt like now. I was an outsider in my own life. When she finally left, I moved quickly, my heart pounding in my chest. I went straight to the study and started gathering the documents I had spent the last few days compiling. As I pulled the paperwork together, I saw the monogrammed wallet again, sitting on the counter. I picked it up, a sense of finality washing over me. June's secrets were all in this house, every last one of them. I grabbed the file folder containing everything I had discovered, the credit card statements, the transactions, the emails between June and Brandon. Everything I needed to make sure she couldn't get out of this without facing the consequences. I was done pretending. When she came home that night, I was waiting for her. She didn't know it, but everything had already changed. She stepped through the door, a tired smile on her face as she tossed her purse on the table. "Jake," she called, her voice light, trying to sound casual, as if nothing had happened. I was already standing in the doorway to the living room, the folder of evidence in my hands. The smile faded from her face when she saw my expression. "You're home early," she said, a slight edge to her voice now. I took a deep breath, walking toward her. "We need to talk." Her gaze flicked to the folder in my hand. The lightness in her eyes turned to caution, and I could feel the tension building between us, thick and suffocating. "I'm done with this, June," I said, my voice steady, cold. "I'm done being your fool. You've been lying to me for months, maybe longer, and I'm done playing this game." Her lips parted, but she didn't speak right away. I knew she was trying to figure out her next move. "You don't even get to lie to me anymore," I continued, throwing the folder onto the coffee table in front of her. "It's all here, everything, the affair, the money, everything you've been hiding." Her eyes darted to the papers, and for a moment, she seemed to freeze. Then she looked back at me, her face twisting in panic. "Jake, please, don't—" "No, I'm not going to please don't this away," I interrupted. "You've been hiding this from me for so long, and I'm done with it. You think you can just walk all over me and keep me in the dark? Well, not anymore." Her hands shook as she picked up the folder, rifling through the papers, her face growing paler by the second. I can explain," she stammered, but I didn't give her the chance. "I don't want explanations," I said firmly. "I want the truth, and I want you to stop lying to me." I watched her crumble, the reality of everything she had done settling over her like a weight. She looked lost, desperate, but I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. Not after everything. I'm sorry, Jake," she said quietly, her voice breaking. "I never meant for it to go this far. I didn't know what to do. But I wasn't listening anymore. I wasn't sure if I even cared about her apologies. The damage was done. The trust was broken, and there was no going back. "I'm not going to let you get away with this," I said, the words coming out sharper than I intended. "You're not going to manipulate me into believing you anymore. I'm going to make sure you pay for what you've done." She stood there, silent now, the weight of her actions pressing down on both of us. I knew this was just the beginning. What came next would be the real fight. But I was ready to take control of my life again, no matter what it took. It had been nearly a week since I confronted June with the evidence, and though I had expected things to blow up immediately, the silence that followed was deafening. She left the house for a few days, saying she needed space, and I didn't argue. I needed space too. I kept myself busy, throwing myself into work, spending time at the gym, doing anything to keep my mind occupied. But no matter how hard I tried, my thoughts always found their way back to June, to Brandon, to everything I had learned about the life I thought I knew. I had spent years building this life with her, building trust, believing in us. And now, it felt like everything had been a lie. Every little piece of evidence I uncovered, every payment, every hidden message, felt like a betrayal all over again. I couldn't shake the anger that simmered beneath the surface. A few days passed, and I heard nothing from June. No calls, no texts. It was as if she had disappeared off the face of the earth. I didn't know if that was a relief or a curse. Part of me wanted her to come back, to talk, to explain. But another part of me knew that I wasn't sure if I could trust her anymore, no matter what she said. Then, one evening, as I was sitting on the couch, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my brother, Marvin, the one person who always seemed to have a pulse on things in the family. "Marvin, I know you're pissed, but there's something you need to hear. It's about Brandon." I stared at the screen for a moment, a sinking feeling crawling up my chest. I had no idea what Marvin could possibly know, but I had to find out. I quickly typed back, "Me. What do you mean? What's going on? Marvin. Just meet me tomorrow. It's important." The message left me with more questions than answers, but something in the pit of my stomach told me that I needed to meet him. This was bigger than just June. Whatever Marvin knew, it was going to change everything. The next day I met Marvin at a local bar. He was sitting at a corner booth, nursing a beer, his face serious in a way I hadn't seen before. When I slid into the seat across from him, he didn't waste any time. "Jake," he said, his voice low, "I didn't want to get involved, but this is bigger than just June. It's about your father." I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. What does Dad have to do with this? This is about June. Marvin hesitated for a moment, his eyes darting to the side before meeting mine. "I didn't want to tell you this over text, but I've been looking into things. Brandon, he's not just some guy. His father is connected to something that goes way back to when your dad was still alive." I leaned forward, feeling the world shift beneath my feet. "What are you talking about?" Marvin sighed and took a sip of his beer. "Remember the scandal from years ago? The one that had the cops all over the place? The one that your dad never really talked about?" I nodded, though the memory of that day still felt hazy. My dad had been involved in some shady deal back when I was younger, but it had all been swept under the rug. I didn't know the details, and I never pressed him on it. But now, with everything falling apart with June, I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "You think Brandon's father is connected to that?" I asked, my voice tight with disbelief. Marvin nodded. "I'm not sure exactly how, but I know enough to tell you that your dad's death wasn't just an accident. And I know Brandon's father is tied to it. I've been digging, trying to figure out how it all connects. And now I know why June was involved with him." I sat back in my chair, the weight of his words hitting me like a brick. "You think she's been with Brandon because of this? Because of my dad?" "I don't know," Marvin said, shaking his head. "But it's all too coincidental, Jake. I just thought you should know. You need to be careful with how you approach this. This isn't just about infidelity or betrayal. This is bigger." The silence between us stretched as I let his words sink in. My mind was spinning, trying to piece everything together. The affair, the secrecy, Brandon, and now my father's shady past. Nothing made sense. My dad had always been a quiet, closed-off man, but I had never imagined that his death could be tied to something like this, and I certainly never expected it to reach into my own life. "You need to go to the police, Jake," Marvin said, his voice stern. "This isn't just about family drama anymore. Someone's playing a long game, and you're caught in the middle of it." I felt a shiver run down my spine. I had no idea what to do with this information. My father's death, Brandon's connection to it, June's betrayal. It was all too much to process, and I couldn't see the full picture yet. But Marvin was right. I couldn't ignore this. That night, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about what Marvin had told me. I had to know the truth. But I wasn't sure how deep this went, or how much I was willing to uncover. Was I ready to go down this rabbit hole? To pull back the curtain on my father's past and potentially destroy what little was left of my family? I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep living in the dark. Not anymore. And the next morning, I found myself on the phone with a lawyer, setting up a meeting to figure out the next steps. June's affair was just the beginning. What I had learned from Marvin had opened up a whole new level of betrayal. A level that wasn't just about infidelity, but about family, trust, and the buried secrets that could bring everything crashing down. I wasn't just fighting for my marriage anymore. I was fighting for the truth. And no matter where it led, I was ready to expose it. The weeks after I met with Marvin felt like a blur, a mix of relentless paperwork, tense conversations, and legal appointments. But through it all, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the brink of something much bigger than I had ever expected. My father's past, Brandon's involvement, June's betrayal, it all tied together in a way that made my head spin. I had to keep pushing forward, even though I wasn't sure where the end was. The first thing I did was meet with a lawyer. Marvin's advice was right. This wasn't just about me and June anymore. It was about everything. My father's death, Brandon's father's shady dealings, and the web of lies I had unwittingly found myself tangled in. My lawyer, a tough woman named Beth, was sharp, no nonsense, and kept me focused when I was starting to lose sight of what mattered. "Jake," she said one day, after we had gone over some of the evidence I had gathered. "This isn't going to be easy. You're not just dealing with a marital issue here. You're potentially dealing with a conspiracy. If you want answers, you need to be prepared to take on more than you're ready for." I nodded, but my stomach tightened at the thought. I had spent my entire life trying to avoid drama, to keep things simple, but now drama was unavoidable. The deeper I dug, the more I realized that the truth I was after wasn't going to come without a cost. "Take your time, Jake," Beth said gently. "But when you're ready, we move forward. You don't back down when you're this close." That night, I sat in the quiet of my living room, staring out the window, my mind a tangled mess of questions and doubts. I had always been the one to fix things, to solve problems. But now, the problem was so much bigger than anything I could have imagined. It wasn't just about June or her affair. It wasn't even just about my father's mysterious death. It was about everything: the lies, the betrayal, the manipulation. And somewhere in the middle of it all, I had to decide who I was going to be. Was I going to be the guy who turned a blind eye and let everything slip away? Or was I going to take control and fight for the truth? I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't go back to pretending everything was fine. I had spent too long living in the shadows of everyone else's mistakes. It was time to step into the light. Days turned into weeks, and the legal proceedings were moving forward. Slowly but surely, I was piecing together the pieces of a puzzle that seemed to have no end. But amid the chaos, there were small moments of clarity. One morning, I received a call from my brother, Marvin, with more information about Brandon's father. A name, a connection to a business scandal from years ago that had never been fully investigated. The more we dug, the more the pieces started falling into place, like the final puzzle pieces snapping together. But the hardest part of all was confronting June. Despite everything that had happened, despite the pain and the anger, I couldn't bring myself to completely shut her out. I knew we needed closure. I needed it. And I was tired of living in the shadow of the lies. I had to hear it from her, what had really happened. But this time, there would be no more excuses, no more lies. I invited June to meet me at a park, a place where we had spent so many afternoons together, laughing and talking about our future. It felt fitting somehow, like the last place we had truly been happy. She showed up on time, her face a little drawn, but she still had that air of uncertainty about her. The same uncertainty that had been there ever since the night I confronted her. She hadn't said much since then. She had left for a while, stayed with her sister, and we hadn't really talked. But now she was standing in front of me again, just like we used to be. "Jake," she said quietly, her voice almost pleading, "I don't know what to say. I don't know how to fix this. I made the biggest mistake of my life, and I can't take it back." I looked at her, my heart still raw, but something had shifted in me. I was done with the games, I had my answers, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. "June, I can't pretend everything's fine. I can't just sweep this under the rug like it never happened. You've broken something that can't be fixed with words." She nodded, her eyes filled with tears. I know I've hurt you. I've been selfish, and I'll never forgive myself for what I've done to you." I felt a pang of sympathy, but it was fleeting. The damage was done, and I realized in that moment that I wasn't sure if we could ever go back to who we once were. "I need time," I said, my voice steady. "I need to figure out who I am now, and I don't think I can do that with you in my life right now." June's face crumbled and she nodded, taking a step back. "I understand, Jake. I know you're angry, and I deserve that. I just want you to know how sorry I am. You didn't deserve any of this." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The weight of everything was too much to bear in that moment. As she walked away, I stood there, the quiet hum of the park surrounding me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was finally ending. And yet, I felt a strange kind of peace. The truth had come out, and though it hadn't fixed everything, it had opened a door. The next few weeks were a blur. June and I didn't speak much after that meeting. She moved out, and I focused on the legal battle ahead of me. The affair, the financial betrayal, the involvement with Brandon. It was all coming to light, and the world I had built was crumbling in front of me. But amidst the chaos, there were small victories. I regained control of my life. My business was thriving again, and I had a new sense of purpose. My relationship with Marvin deepened as we worked together to uncover more about Brandon's involvement with my father's past. Each new piece of information brought me closer to understanding the full scope of everything that had happened. And as the dust began to settle, I realized something important. I had survived. I had faced the truth, no matter how painful, and I was rebuilding. It wasn't easy, but it was mine to rebuild. Months passed. I had taken control of the business, secured my future, and slowly started to reconnect with people I had neglected over the years. My brother Marvin became my sounding board. My friends rallied around me, and I even started to find moments of peace. One afternoon, as I sat in my office, I received a message. It was from my grandson Taylor, who had been living with me ever since the divorce. He had been my rock through all of this. His innocent outlook on life reminded me what it was like to start fresh. Taylor: Grandpa, I think we should go get some ice cream. You've been working a lot. We can make today the start of something new. I smiled at the message and leaned back in my chair, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The past had been painful, but it was behind me now. And the future? That was a blank slate. I was ready to start over, to build something new, not just for myself, but for the people who mattered. I grabbed my coat, stood up, and headed for the door. It was time to live again. And this time, it would be on my terms.